As far as paid lawyer, no paid lawyer, I completely agree with RDAP Dan on this one. I mean, if you just have the money, it makes no difference in your world to throw it away, throw it away. But and if you have that much money, you wouldn't qualify for a public defender anyway. But if you qualify for a public defender, that's really your best bet. Because with the Fed, the conversation is not are you going to prison, it's how long are you going to go to prison. And the parameters that, of negotiation that exist are the same whether you have a paid lawyer or a public defender, and you're going to get pretty much the same outcome. So instead of spending your money on a lawyer, I strongly advise, spend money on, make a trust fund if you're going away for several years for your kids. So every Christmas, little Tommy and Billy get $500, for Christmas, or put money towards your inmate account, or put money in a savings account. So when you come home, you already have an established bank account, which is an important resource in society as being a citizen, but also some seed money to kind of hit the ground running. But I think generally for most people, paid lawyers are a waste of money in the Fed. I
agree. Next up, we're going to go all the way to the other side of the planet and talk to Africa, Liberia. Now, I work with this gentleman. He works for the Wings for Life. He's our director over there in Liberia, but he's been in those prisons in Africa. I want to introduce, and he's got a new channel. So, Raymond, say hello.
No, we have no audio, Raymond.
Yeah, hit your mic.
That's what I was like. Is he blowing kisses at us? What is happening?
I wonder if I have him muted. No? Talk now, Raymond.
All right.
There we go.
Yes. So I say hi to the entire team. My name is Raymond Falabomo, and I serve as the country director for Wings for Life International in Liberia. So basically, I started this entire episode when I went to prison for 3 consecutive days. And with the experience I had, during my time there was so scary, inhumane treatment, I met, people were overcrowded in our prisons, no food, no adequate medication, we were sleeping to where feces were, and a lot of scary things. That's how I got involved with this entire, prison system to see how we can help, mitigate the issue of, the way people are treated, as inmates, and try to make them become productive citizens when they are out. One of the things in our country is the rate of recidivism is at 89%. So we have a lot of recidivists, and many times, they are pre-trial detainees. They stay there ever so long for minor offenses or minor crimes. And so what Wings is basically doing, or I'm doing, is to see how we can prepare those that are coming out of prison so that they can become productive, so that they will not easily go back, because many a time the ones that go back is because of lack of job, they do not have the means of survivability. So these are things that are strangulating them, and we are there to see how we can help, reduce the number of recidivists we have.
Raymond, how do lawyers come in? Do they have lawyers out there for people going in prison, or do they need one, or how does that work in the court system out there?
So absolutely, there are lawyers here. There are public defenders, but the problem with our society is it is so corrupt that even those that are supposed to serve as public defenders or pro bono lawyers, so to speak, will still want a bribe before they can go into your case, and many a time those that are incarcerated cannot afford, to hire a lawyer. So that strangulates them. It makes a lot of people are staying behind bars beyond the statutory period. So that's how challenging it is in Liberia.
Okay. Later on, I want to ask you about a typical day in an African prison, because if you guys think you got it bad, a bologna sandwich and being locked up in the shoe would probably be the best day a prisoner ever had in Africa, guys. So Raymond will tell you.
Of course. Our prisons, in fact, many a time they go hungry. They eat once a day, and it's just a plate of rice, absolutely dry. If there is something on it, it's just mad sauce that you can just, I mean, it's not nutritional. It can't even, build you up. And so a lot of the guys that are there die because of starvation. That's a serious issue within our country, because the government says they cannot afford. So most time the only way they eat something, eat a better food, is when a family member at home cooks and bring it out of prison or take it out of prison. That's when that become a holiday or a Christmas for them, so to speak. So many of them goes hungry. I had that experience for just the 3 days I spent.
Yeah, thank you, Raymond. And we'll get back to you. And last but not least, unless I'm waiting on other people, but we have one of my favorites who I got to know her before she went to prison, guys. She's went through it. She's out now. This is Angie.
Hi, everybody. So, again, my name is Angie. I do have a YouTube channel. I haven't been very active on it, to be honest, because luckily I got my career back that I had, that I've went to college for and worked really hard for. So I'm back into my career, so it keeps me really busy. So I don't do any prison consulting or anything. I would refer to Dan, actually, for sure. But I do other things, absolutely. So I do other things. I have, because of my YouTube channel, had women contact me to ask me questions and to get advice and things like that. And I'm always, happy to offer that, any information I have. And I've helped people with personal statements just because I can write well. So I'm available to do editing. But really, I am just kind of astounded that I was able to get out. Like I said before, when I was talking to Dan, that I got a 30-month sentence and I only did 9 months. And I got out and I did 5 months in a halfway house and then 1 month home confinement without a monitor or anything. I've been out for just over a year and just worked random jobs until I was able to get my career back. So I've had a lot of luck along the way. One of the things I'm working on right now is I'm writing a book, and I'm really excited about it because so what it is instead of chapters, it's going to be 2 parts. Part 1 is our stories. Part 2 is called Their Stories. And so it'll be people who have been incarcerated and what their story is. And how they got to that place in life, what their childhood was like, what they've been doing, their successes and challenges since they got out. Their stories for part 2 in the same book is stories from a loved one that was affected by our choices. And so I'm really excited about that. And hopefully that'll be done by December. So
nice. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So yeah, life is like ridiculously good, to be honest. I don't feel like I deserve all that I have. One really interesting thing that happened is I can't get off probation. I was given 2 years probation, and I cannot get off probation early because I owe restitution. But I got a call from my probation officer a month ago, and they decided to put me on the lowest of the low probation. So even though I still have, I think it's 16 months left of probation, because I'm on the lowest of the low, they said that I have such a low risk of recidivism. I am able to travel without permission.
Have you filed a motion?
I didn't do anything. They contacted me and said, you're considered our model probationary person, and the government has decided to put you on this special thing, whatever it is.
Have you filed a motion to try to terminate your?
I'm sorry. No, I have not, because I owe restitution.
Right. It can still be terminated. Yeah. It's still up to the judge. You would still owe the money, because even after you're off probation, you're still going to owe the money. It's just right now, if you don't pay it, it can be a criminal situation. After probation is done, it becomes civil. Feel free to reach out to me when we're done. I'd be willing to help you with the motion for free.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Wow.
I had no idea. I always was under the impression that because I owed restitution, that wasn't an option, so that I would stay on probation.
It's a huge misconception, because a lot of attorneys will tell you but it's not up to probation. Probation can object, but it's ultimately going to be up to the sentencing judge. And if you've been making all of your payments, and we can create a good reason as to why, I mean, in your situation, it might be a tough battle because they're giving you full access to travel without permission.
Yeah.
But how much more time do you have?
I'm off probation October 25th of 2024, and I pay $900 a month restitution.
Ooh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Matt Cox doesn't even pay that much, I don't think, does he?
They told me that's what I have to pay.
Yeah, that's I mean, it is what it is, but
I'm good with it. I mean, whatever.
yeah, if we can get you, I mean, you're still going to owe it if you come
Yeah.
off of probation, but just not having that, to me, probation, home confinement, things like that, obviously it's one step better than being where you were, but it's still rough because you'll get in that level of complacency where, you know, the average person spits on the sidewalk and there's no consequences, where we're under a microscope. You spit on a sidewalk and it can, God forbid, land us back in prison. So if you can
That's
get
right.
off of it, why not make an attempt? And if you do get off, great. Then we can show one more case study that, you know, beating the odds. So let's take a swing.
Yeah. I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, Dan, because like I had no clue. How many other people watching this have no idea that could ever even be an option?
That's why we're all here, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Thanks
thank
to
you. Yeah.
Thanks to that Paul guy up in the corner over there.
Well, I want to thank all of you guys, because if you guys don't know me, my name's Sean Cowgill. I did 52 months for wire fraud. It was filing fake taxes for a whole bunch of people, a whole lot. So I got a big restitution, guys. But I had 9 co-defendants. It's $1.7 million. Little old me. But and I was living at a homeless shelter at the time, so I didn't care. Today I care. I don't live in a homeless shelter, but I've kind of done my life's so good today. All these people you guys see on the screen have all been part of my life. Before prison, except for Raymond, but after prison, I mean, you guys have all helped me when I've had bad days and real bad days and good days. And you guys, I've shared a lot with you guys. You guys have helped me with my struggles, everything. You guys have all made a difference in my life today. So I thank all of you, and even Raymond. Raymond, even though he's on the other side of the planet, thanks to technology, you know, I talked to Raymond a lot, probably more than you guys. So, but Raymond's been there for me too. All this, I mean, technology that brings this world much more closer. RDAP Dan started it all. I used to sit there on pretrial, scared. I had nobody to turn to. Nobody understands me, and there was RDAP Dan. And now all you guys understand me. And anybody watching, this can happen to you too. I know a lot of you guys are facing prison time that watch my channel, and it could all. It's a journey, guys. Don't let it be the end of your life. Be the beginning of your new life. And you use this opportunity, guys. This could be a blessing in disguise. This is something that most people don't get, this opportunity to go to prison and work on your body, your soul, your mind, your spirit, and find out the meaning of you. And then you'll find out the meaning of your life. And then you just might find out the meaning of life can be happy. And you get this, it's an opportunity. It's a gift.
Am I at a TED Talks right now?
What's that?
Am I at a TED Talks? That was amazing, Sean.
It's a gift. We get this opportunity, and all those problems, drama, and all that stuff is going to be waiting for you when you get out. But now, when you get out, the new you will. It's the Phoenix rising, right? Right. Audrey?
That's right. That's right. And I tell my people, it is just a slice of your life, and you will get through it because you have to. And with self-surrender, a lot of people are terrified in that moment. They've never been to prison, and it's overwhelming, and it's an emotional thing. But here's the thing. If you're a self-surrender, you've been sentenced. So it is inevitable, a part of your life, that you're going to go to prison. So the day you walk in there, it is time to effing celebrate, because guess what? You're starting to get through this crap that you have to go through to get to the other side. So before you can imagine a wonderful life after prison, or the future you want to build, or the ties you want to re-strengthen, you know, once this part of your life has ended, you have to go through prison to get to that. To get to the other side of the bridge, you got to start walking. And so once you self-surrender, you're cracking open the gates of your new life.
And I know you could talk. I'll speak for you guys, because I'm pretty sure anybody could call you. Even Raymond, you want to talk to somebody who's been through some prisons that you don't want to face. Raymond will take your call. He's on Facebook, right, Raymond? I know you'll help people. All you guys have always reached out and helped people. You know, it's not all about money, guys. Pay me $5,000 like a lawyer will, and then I'll talk to you. We're not like that. Are we, guys?
Hey, Sean, can you pull up that question from Katie? I'd like to answer it.
Yeah, sure. And Katie really needs your help, guys. I've been talking to her. I know she does. She says, does anyone know how long you can be on home confinement? I'm on pretrial home confinement, and my case is dragging out. Will they let up on the home confinement? I'm going, I guess, that's her question.
So
She's going crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
How long can you be on home confinement? So pretrial, obviously your pretrial home confinement isn't going to count towards any of your time, just to make sure you understand that. Now, because of COVID is now dead, so the whole COVID Relief Act that was in prison is no longer in existence. So technically, the most amount of time you can do on home confinement is 6 months. And typically, the most amount of halfway house time an individual will be given is up to a year. Now, with FSA, that can be extended. But if you're given 12 months of halfway house, the most amount of time you can do on home confinement would be 10% of your sentence. So assuming you haven't been sentenced yet, Katie, let's say
she has not. They're just now doing discovery, I think.
Right. So let's say you're sentenced to 60 months. If you're given a 60-month sentence, you can qualify for up to 12 months of halfway house. And out of that 12 months of halfway house, you would do 6 months in the halfway house and 6 months on home confinement. Because of COVID, through the CARES Act, they removed that and lifted that barrier to where technically you could have done your entire sentence on home confinement through the BOP, but that's no longer, that's been removed. So 6 months is the most amount of time you can do on home confinement per BOP policy.
I hope that helps. And
if that
you
didn't
guys
answer your
don't
question,
mind, I've got all your information there. And if Katie calls me, and can I give out your phone numbers or your Facebook link, Raymond? Because Katie really needs our help, and I don't want to get into her case because that's up to her. What's that?
You can put my phone number right. You can drop it into the live chat.
You bet. Oh, okay. Well, I don't have it handy, but you can.
$4.99 a minute. It doesn't let me chat in here.
I need to give you a tool, I guess, a wrench. That's what they're called.
I don't know, Sean. What kind of tool are you going to give me?
Hey, now, how much time did you do, Dan, again? Oh, you're in a low. That's why.
I'm not putting the knee pads back on, Sean, no matter how hard you ask.
Yeah. Watch out when you go to the lows, guys. People don't really talk about what goes on there, right, Dan? But
it's funny. My daughter had such a big fear about me going to prison. And after I got there and she realized, because I went to a low, not a camp. And when she realized it was no big deal at all, by the first or second week, she was like 13 at the time, and she was making jokes like, "Don't drop the soap, Dad." So you guys have nothing to, unless you're going to a medium or a penitentiary.
Yeah.
And even in those cases, depending on your situation, you might not have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
Hey, I did a video on Don't Drop the Soap, and I've had about a dozen clips from all the movies of Drop the Soap things. You guys might want to check it out.
Everybody in the internet.
Type in Don't Drop the Soap on my channel. I do some comedy videos once in a while, guys. So
I'm pretty sure Joe from After Prison Show dropped the soap.
Yeah. He dropped a few things.
Let's get some clickbait, Sean, for you.
So I want to ask this question regarding the U.S. Why is your country is the leading country in terms of incarceration?
Money, my man. Raymond. Money.
Money, yeah, it's all money.
No other
It's a big money maker.
You'll find out how free our country really is when you get in the federal system.
Yeah.
That's why there's been policy reform pushing. I mean, it hasn't passed, obviously, but policy reform, one of the biggest policy reforms, Raymond, is trying to shut down privatized prisons, because it's like a hotel. You know, if you have a hotel with no occupants in there, your hotel rate is going to be very low. So the more people you have in your private prisons, the more you can get in funding, state funding, federal funding.
The more money.
I mean, you knew the answer. I think it's sad. It's because there's a lot of good people. Now, don't get me wrong. Every person I deal with made a mistake. You know, do they need to go to prison? Maybe, maybe not. But everybody in this room that's in here right now, none of us went to prison because we were, innocent or wrongly accused. Most of us made a bad choice, and we weren't focusing on the consequences that existed. And if we did look at how easy it was to wrap up ourselves in the prison system, we probably would have made better choices to begin with. But I know plenty of people in the States, in the world, that don't know what it's like to wear handcuffs, that don't know where a police station is, and have never been to jail, never will go, because they make better decisions. So for those that are watching that get stuck in the victim mentality, if you're in trouble for something, it's not because somebody told on you. You know, if you got told on, you put yourself in a situation to get told on. So the best way through this, to really serve the least amount of time to get your mind right, is kind of owning your shit and admitting what you could have done differently, and you probably wouldn't have been to prison in the first place. So
there you go. And I also believe these bad decisions, bad choices. To me, I ordered a Big Mac instead of a quarter pounder. That's a bad choice. You did something you thought about. You put your family second, your friends second. You did all this way ahead of that bad choice. I'm sorry, but you could change all that and you could turn that around. But at Wings for Life, we deal with those families you left behind, that you did this to them. Okay, that's in their mind. You did this to them. You're going to prison. You're leaving them. Okay, you made it. That's the choice you made. So you got to kind of take accountability. Now you could turn all that around. And I just real quick advice, anybody facing prison time, anybody is in your house right now, every single day, go up to them, hug them, say, I love you. I don't care if you just had a fight with them, hug them. If you can do it 5 times a day, your kids, even your boss that you hate, you go hug them and say, I love you. If you don't do that, and you've heard what I said, when you get to prison, you're going to wish you did.
that is true.
Well, you know, one thing I'll say is that one of the letters that I edited for somebody that did their personal statement that they were going to read at sentencing, I had to have a conversation with that person after I read what they wrote, because they were making a lot of excuses, and they were also saying a lot of things like, well, my mother needs me here, my family's going to suffer, I got kids. And I said, we all have issues. Like, that means nothing to the judge. Like, you got to take it. What you need to talk about is what you did. Take accountability for it. Nobody cares that your mother is elderly and needs you there. You should have thought about that. You should have cared. The judge doesn't care about that. They want to know that you're actually really caring and taking accountability, like these guys said, for what you did. We don't care why you
today, guys. It starts today. Start looking at your life today. Don't wait till you're out of prison, because that'll never happen. You'll never do it then.
And get rid of the excuses.
Well, I tell people too that your allocution, you know, your personal statement at sentencing, is really your fall on your sword moment. You know what I mean? That's where there is no excuses, there is no justification, there is no circumstances, no matter how legitimate, to try to put your offense to bow tie it and pretty it up. When you give allocution, it is your fall on your sword moment. You need to apologize to your loved ones, because no matter how much you did or didn't do, they have no stake in this, or they had no involvement, you know, or no fault. So whether you see yourself as a victim or not, they are the greater victims regardless, because they will suffer more than you will. So you have to apologize to them, apologize to the courts that you've put yourself in a situation to take their time and resources to prosecute you and deal with you. And you need to identify your victims. And a lot of people have charges like mine where where your PSI says it was a victimless offense, right? Well, my charge was using a communications facility to facilitate a drug trafficking offense. This is a fancy way to say you use the Postal Service to move some drugs. And, you know, so my PSI said it was victimless because, you know, another party said it wasn't even my drugs, and it wasn't. It was I wasn't even the drug dealer. I was the girlfriend of the drug dealer. You know, my whole going to prison was basically because I stuck my head in the sand and was complicit by default. But I tell people, even in that situation, I identified my victims at allocution, and my victims were my community. The community that I had been volunteering in and helping in my day-to-day life. I was also putting in jeopardy by knowingly having a pattern of behavior that enabled and assisted a person who was funneling mountains of narcotics into my community at the same time. So my victims were the people whose homes get broken into because people are out here trying to feed an addiction. My victims were the loved ones of those who choose to do drugs and subsequently die. And now you have a family mourning a loved one and paying for a funeral and these kind of things. So even though my actions at the time were not thinking like, oh, I don't care about my community, or, oh, let this family suffer, or let this person, whatever. That wasn't my thought process, but really I have victims. And so I also apologize to my community, and I apologize to all those who are impacted by the drug epidemic in my community, because I had, by my own complacency, been of assistance in drugs funneling into my community. And I fully understand the harm that does. And I personalize my victims to my judge by saying, the facts of, I have several cousins who are drug addicts. I have an uncle who we had to bury because he was a drug addict. So I personally know firsthand the suffrage that comes from drugs within the community and drug use in the community. And I had still chose to turn a blind eye to my part in that, during that time. And I think my judge really respected that a lot. I think he really, and I try to do some restorative justice before I went to prison. That's something I always advocate for people to do too, and make sure it's mentioned in your PSI. And don't mention that in your allocution, but make sure it's in your PSI. I volunteered more in my community. I tried to be an overwhelmingly positive contributor into my community to try to mitigate some of the negative that I have been part of.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Thank you. That's accountability, guys. That's accountability.
But you can say you're sorry all day, but we all know the old saying, if someone says they're sorry, but their behaviors stay the same, that's not an apology, it's a manipulation. And so definitely before you give allocution and you fall on your sword, try to do some restorative justice. Find a way, and make sure, now you don't mention it, but make sure your lawyer mentions, hey, this person, they did something wrong. They're taking responsibility. They know they have consequences, but they are truly remorseful for what they've done. And they've even taken steps and done things to try to mitigate the harm that they've caused.
And actions speak louder than words. I
Absolutely.
did once a week at a food bank. I fed the homeless every Friday night in a van. We went around and handed out sack lunches and sleeping bags and stuff. Alcoholics Anonymous, they had an office. I cleaned their bathrooms every Friday, right? I did stuff like that.
And that's
my
awesome.
Lawyer, like you said, I had my lawyer say it, not me. Well, Judge,
you don't say
I
it.
did that. Let your lawyer speak for you. She's
right. And
there.
You just fall on your sword. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And let your lawyer say she's sorry, and this is what she's doing to try to right her wrongs.
One of the big things when it comes time for doing your allocution versus like your narrative, people will start regurgitating the information that was in their narrative to begin with.
Right.
So we work with our clients in their allocutions, and obviously we give them bullet points of what should go into it. And then they send it over to us on what they want to say. And they're also, the problem I found, even for myself, is unless you're a professional speech giver or you're an actor and you're used to speaking to audiences, the audience you're going to be speaking to is going to be in this jaw-dropping courtroom where you're going to just start mumbling, you forget what you're going to say, you start snotting up and crying. So we work with our clients in aspects of, we get them to go to things like open mic night, practice saying their allocution in front of a live audience, get the marbles out of your mouth. And it's okay to hold the piece of paper while you're reading. But to kind of piggyback on what you said, the accountability factor, a lot of times people think they're in a victimless crime and, well, I don't have any victims. Well, you're leaving behind children, you're leaving behind a wife,
absolutely,
or a husband, and having those individuals identify themselves as your victims, even in the character reference level. The personal narrative, the big thing is also you'll get people that turn in 20, 30 letters. And I just think it's too many,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're making the judge work now.
And if you think about it, usually the letters are being turned in with what's called your sentencing memorandum, which is something your attorney is going to prepare. They're going to file their sentencing memo, and then you're going to have your sentencing memo. And that's usually when your narrative and your reference letters are submitted. So have 2 to 3, maybe 4 character reference letters that are on point, and actually reviewing those, not just having your friends and family write letters and not read it and send it in. We have a free consulting where we can go through your letters with you, but not everybody hire a consultant. The personal narrative, guys, if you're early on in your case, you really want to get your attorney on the mindset of submitting your personal narrative at the time of the pre-sentence interview during the disciplinary report, because for those of you that don't know what takes place in a pre-sentence interview, this is after you've taken a plea deal or after you've gone to trial and lost. You're going to sit down with U.S. probation, and typically the interview is only 30 minutes to maybe an hour, where probation is going to ask you a bunch of yes and no questions to understand your entire life. And then they're going to take those basic yes or no answers and they're going to create your life history based on that, where the government is going to submit terabytes worth of information why you're Satan's best friend. If you want to have a shot at getting
they can even pull up your juvenile record, right, Dan?
Well, it's not that they can, they will. It's not going to be used against
There
you.
you go.
But it's not going to hurt you on your points. It's not going to go against your criminal
but
history.
It's an argument that they use against you.
They can use it as this is something along the lines. Having your personal narrative submitted to the probation officer can be very valuable because it's going to give the probation officer much more information about who you are. Almost every client that we do that with, that we have the personal narrative submitted at the time of the pre-sentence interview, almost every single time probation will make the same statement, I wish every defendant came in this prepared. Now, not to take up too much time on here, because I know Katie's going through this, so this is going to be something Katie's going to be facing at some point. Your attorney is probably going to squawk at this idea. When you tell your attorney, I want to give my personal narrative to you as probation, they're going to tell you they don't need to see it. They don't want to see it. We can't do that. All kinds of basically C blocking. And the reality is it's probably because your attorney hasn't taken a deep dive into what's in your narrative because they don't honestly think it's going to matter. They don't think make a change. But I'll tell you, if you take control and realize that your attorney works for you, that you're the one that's going to go to prison, not your attorney. And if you hold your attorney to a higher standard, making them frustrated, asking them the questions until you get the answers, getting your narrative submitted to that probation report, not only is going to give more information, but it's guaranteeing that the judge is going to read it. Because if the judge doesn't read anything else, the one fucking thing that judge is, excuse my French, guys, the one thing the judge is going to read is the pre-sentence report. And if your narrative is in there, there's even an interview from Michael Santos where he interviewed a federal judge, and the federal judge said, I've never seen that before, but I think it's a great idea because A, the information is getting to them in a timely manner, and B, it shows that the defendant isn't lazy in submitting a letter like the day before sentencing. So these are all things that you could be doing, that when we talk about mitigating outside the circumstances, these are the things that can give a judge the ability to want to go below guidelines. Every single person in this chat room right now that's been sentenced, when that judge walks in the room, he's already got a pretty good idea of what he's going to give you. He's already got it written down. He's already heard the arguments from paper, from the pre-sentence report, from the state, or from the government. So he's come in there already kind of with his mind made up. This is your opportunity to give your allocution and to give the judge a reason to reconsider what type of sentence they should give you. We see people getting probation or highly reduced sentences where the judge said, I was prepared to give you this today, but after reading this, after hearing what you had to say, after seeing your level of accountability beyond the average person, I don't think that a long prison sentence is what needs to happen here. I think that you've actually learned a mistake. So you have to really take heed to what's going on here, because this isn't just for us to get up here and spew hot air to you guys.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that's sentencing day is probably the most important day of your life, other than maybe getting married or your funeral. This day you will never ever forget, and you're not going to get a second chance to say what you wanted to say or not say, or all these things Dan is talking about. This is the most important day of the rest of your life, as far as I'm concerned, other than maybe getting married or something like that. But you'll never forget your sentence day. Even Raymond knows the day he got sentenced. He remembers, and he didn't get that long of a sentence, but I know he'll never forget that day, guys. So this is very, very important. Listen to everything Dan said.
90 seconds top, Katie. I just wanted to make sure Katie got that answer. 90 seconds top should be your allocution.
I was going to say 5 minutes, but 90 seconds, really? Okay.
See, I kind of feel like, and shoot for the 3-minute bracket and practice saying it. Practice saying it and time yourself. And do this looking in a mirror, making eye contact. And you want to try to make as much eye contact as possible. You do not want to fidget. Any nervousness that makes you want to fidget, wiggle your toes in your shoes. Nobody sees that. And there's, of course, a lot of other things about how you dress and whatever that are very minute things that add up to a big picture. But piggybacking off Dan here, I completely agree with everything he said. And I will say that I tell people your personal narrative is who are you outside of your crime and who were you during the time of your crime? What is your backstory and what were the circumstances when you committed your crime? While being very careful to walk a fine line to not seem as though you're excusing your behavior. But definitely allocution is a fall on your sword moment. It doesn't matter that your daddy beat you and the neighbor touched you, and whatever, you had a boyfriend who was intimidating you when you committed your crime. None of that matters at allocution, but that does matter in your personal narrative. And like Dan said, you want to get that to your judge and to probation prior to the PSI. That way your PSI reflects your personal narrative. It's almost like you're giving probation kind of parameters to move their line of questioning through, which will greatly benefit your judge seeing you as an individual in the long run.
Thank you. Can I ask Raymond, can you tell us about your sentencing day, Raymond? I know you didn't get a lot of time, but do you remember what you said to the judge?
So it's actually one of the worst day I ever thought of. You feel, I mean, your spirit leaves you when you are told that you are going to jail. Yeah. So it was very, very challenging when that happened to me. Even though the time were very short, I had 3 days there, but the stigma that is carried, I mean, by being incarcerated, it's most especially in Africa, is a huge one. People are people feel terrified, identifying with you as someone who is, involved with crime, So it's a very huge thing when it comes to the way we Africans look at, the criminal justice system. It's not unlike the US. Your population almost maybe 60 to 50% of your experience the issue of incarceration, but not as compared to that of the African. Even though our criminal, our prison system is absolutely very bad, not as compared to yours, but it carries a very huge stigma. Yeah.
So
Well, there's certainly a huge stigma here in the States as well. Yeah. But our media promotes that.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing scarier than getting my girlfriend got sentenced before I did, by several weeks, and she was the low man on the totem pole. Like everybody in our indictment, there was 13 of us in our indictment. We all thought for sure Shelley was getting probation, and when the judge gave Shelley 13 months, the rest of us were like, "Oh my god, we're all getting the electric chair." It was there's nothing scarier. I'm not gonna lie, I had suicidal thoughts. I didn't know what to tell my kids. Matter of fact, I would lie to my children and tell them that I was a victim, that the government's out to get me, that I'm going to go to prison because I can't afford a pricey attorney. And it wasn't until after prison that I came home and came clean with my kids. And they were pretty pissed because they were like, "We defended you. We told you didn't do this." And it's very common for us to not want to appear different in our children's eyes than the superhero that they've envisioned. But if your object and goal in life as a parent is to protect your kids and to put them in a better situation than what they're in, giving them an unrealistic, irrational fear of law enforcement, things of this nature, because now they just think everybody's out to get them. So you're not doing your kids any favors by minimizing your role and your actions in what led you into the situation that got you to this point.
Dan, that reminds me of a question that comes up a lot when I talk to people. At what age should you tell your children the truth? Now, they're going to hear it at school. If you don't tell them, who knows? Is it 5? Is it 10 years old? Do you even want to tell them the truth? Let me ask you guys that one.
In my opinion, and you guys can chime in, it's relevant to the mindset and the child's understanding and able to compute thoughts. If you've got a 5-year-old, 6-year-old that's like super with it and they're asking very intelligent questions, then sure. But if you've got a kid that doesn't comprehend what's going on, you're better off telling them, I'm going to go into timeout. Daddy did the same thing when you do what you're not told to do and you get sent to your room, or you get a smack on the butt or whatever it might be. You've got to explain it to them at a level that they can understand. My kids were definitely old enough to understand, and I met people in prison that even while they were when they would go to visitation, they would convince their kids that they were at like a military camp. Or daddy's going to go away for work for a year and a half.
I'm going to work for the government for 12 cents an hour. Yeah.
Yep. And then they get on the phone and they're talking to you, and this call's from a federal inmate. That recording that comes on periodically. So there's going to be zero benefit from lying to them, because you're really you're not doing it for them. You're ultimately doing it for you. We ask our clients the question, would you ever do anything to hurt your children? Oh, of course not. Of course not. And well, you're going to prison. You broke the law. You're now leaving them and you're hurting your family. You know, a lot of the men that we deal with think while they're in prison, they're still going to run things. Oh, I'm going to.
Yeah, I hear them on the phone all the time, running that household. Yeah.
And they're just not. You've got these women that have lived a certain life, and the women are terrified too. But these women find out real quick that they're stronger than they thought, and they find an inner power to the point where when my clients get out, the relationships are usually stronger. And now the spouse is involved with finances, writing checks, knows what the day-to-day is. Like, they're never going to have the wool pulled over their head again.
Yeah,
so,
your role has been replaced while you're doing time.
Yeah, they're the mother and the father and the housekeeper and the bill maker and, you know, running you're in prison. You can't control your life on the outside while you're behind bars on a 15-minute phone call once every other couple of days. It's just impossible.
Yeah. And I definitely, you know, when my door got kicked in, I had a teenager and a toddler. So two very different mind age frames, you know. And now I have a 20-year-old and a 6-year-old. But, you know, definitely at the time, me and the teenager had a very honest, age-appropriate conversation. You know, with the toddler going in, I explained to him a couple months ahead of time that mommy was going to go away for a little while. I love you. I will call you and be able to talk to you on the phone. I may be able to have some video visits with you. And I said, you know, it's like when we get on, you know, on Facebook and talk to this person or that person. I said, you know, but mommy's going to be gone for a while. Mommy got in trouble. And so now mommy has to go away. Mommy has to go to grown-up timeout, you know, is what my youngest one was told. And he didn't really, all the different moving parts of my situation were way too complex for his age group. So we had watched an episode of Bubble Guppies where the officer pulls over a speeder, you know. And I knew that was something he understood. So I said, remember that time I got a speeding ticket, which ironically I got a speeding ticket. And he said, yeah. And I said, remember the Bubble Guppies, you know, arrested the person and put him in timeout in jail for a while? And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's what's happening to mommy. You know, I'm going to be in jail for a while and I'm going to be in timeout. And, you know, and if you asked him today, he'd probably say, yeah, my mom got a speeding ticket. So she had to go to prison, to grown up timeout. You ask my 20-year-old, she can, you know, she was at my sentencing. She was at my plea hearing. She can tell you blow by blow, you know, so much information. And because she was at an age where she could understand that. And, you know, our kids are not oblivious to what's going on. You know, if daddy or mommy has mountains of cash and no 9-to-5, particularly if they're over, you know, 11, 12 years old, they're definitely, at least to some degree, at least subconsciously aware that something abnormal is happening. And I think that addressing that and minimizing their confusion, giving them as much age-appropriate clarity as possible is really something that has to be a focal point. And, you know, when I was in prison, you know, I was very, with the teenager, you know, I let her know, you know, I'm trying to get these FSAs back and I'm trying to get CARES and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Because I wanted her to see that I didn't just go to prison and go, oh, and I get to kick my feet up and not be a parent. You know, I would, you know, help with various life issues. You know, I was fortunate enough to be able to send a couple dollars home, you know, here and there and help out with things while I was incarcerated. And, you know, but, you know, one of the hardest things, and I remember seeing this from another YouTuber, I don't remember which one before I went to prison, but they said one of the most difficult struggles for the newly incarcerated is realizing that the influence and power you had in life as a spouse, as a parent, as a caretaker, all that is stripped from you when you go to prison. And so you have to hand over those reins to someone else and really just trust that they're going to do the right thing and support them. Even if I don't agree with 100% of the way my son was parented in my absence, but at the end of the day, he wasn't abused or neglected. And when I came home, he was a well-adjusted kid. So I can be nothing but humble and grateful and just shut up and take it on the chin. It is what it is. You know what I mean? And now that I'm fresh home, you know, I've been home less than 3 months. It's really interesting reintegrating my position in life as a caretaker for my elderly mother, as someone who assists their brother, someone who assists their adult daughter, and you know, as a single parent to my 6-year-old. You know, you can't just come home and snatch back the reins. You have to really kind of integrate yourself into these roles, or you're going to overwhelm yourself and really overwhelm your loved ones with a dramatic change. And I think that's a whole thing, a whole process in and of itself that we have to go through this, especially women.